Why are England bad now? What a question. There are many answers to this question, in my opinion. One main one that the media are sticking with and are really hounding is that the Saracens players are out of practice at the moment, and it's all down to them not playing in the Premier League anymore because they got relegated last season. The main target that the media have been going with is Billy V, obviously, and now for the first two games he was out of shape and he has admitted it as well. So I mean they do have the right to be hounding him on that. But on Saturday he played very, very well, I thought, and definitely tried to make amends for this. Jamie George is another one who hasn't been necessarily as good as he has been before. And same goes for Farrell, really. The Saracens players just haven't been that good. Atoje has been a bit of a strange one for me. This is because his work rate is incredible, really. I mean, the man's a rugby god, and he's just brilliant at being a nuisance at the breakdown. He's being a nuisance to the number 9. He's just amazing at attacking the other team in all areas of the field. But his rustiness has just meant that he's still trying to do all these things that he normally would be doing so well, but now he's just giving away penalty after penalty after penalty because he's just not doing it as well as he once was. Now, it might be an idea then to give the Saracens players a bit of a break. Seeing as England can no longer win the Six Nations, there's no point really in putting your best team forward for the next two games. I mean, you might as well start experimenting with other people. Give some other players some time out there. Billy V, though, I think he has redeemed himself with the last game. He was looking bad in the first two, but this game he was making loads of line breaks, brilliant ball carrier. I mean, he was playing so well. I mean, you could maybe even move Atoje to the bench in the next game. Either that or just have a word with him, tell him that he needs to just hone back. Don't be as keen as he has been to make an impact. But I once he's kept training up and played more games, I'm sure he'll be back to his old self. Farrell as well, maybe put him on the bench. But I mean, you can't because he's the captain. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But he is definitely past his peak, I think. But I mean, not all the blame can be put on England as a team or Eddie, because I mean they are pretty darn good. I mean, let's not get wrong here. I mean, England have actually played well at times. It's just they're a little bit rusty. That's all it is. They are still a good team. What I have noticed, however, is the other teams have definitely been doing their homework and learn how to beat England. Let's not forget that England were World Cup finalists. They have a target on their back, and these other teams have been looking and studying them, much like if you've been watching the Queen's Gambit on Netflix. I mean, the way they get to win is by studying their opponent and being able to exploit their weaknesses. Now, this is something Scotland managed to do by playing England better at their own game. They saw that England loved to kick, and they tried to pressure that kick as much as they could, and then managing to do better kicks themselves through the likes of Finn Russell and Hogg, and they did that excellently. Italy also did well by exploiting Elliot Daly's inadequacies in defence by getting it wide and then making him be the one that needs to make these tackles on big guys like Monte Ione. I mean, obviously, Italy didn't win, but they did manage to sneak a try through by doing that. Wales as well. I mean, they actually played really, really well. Let's not just say England were bad. Wales played very well. They had a mix of all of these elements, as well as having their excellent defensive technique that they've had for years now, that they've actually been able to beat England with consistently now, and Eddie seems to have just completely not noticed it at all. Squidge has actually pointed this out before in his previous videos looking at Wales. The way Wales defend, they don't defend as a wall, they defend with a net. They let you make some meters to then take you away from the supporting player. That then means that they can try and poach the ball quicker or slow it down the number 9 as a way of stopping them from getting quick ball, or maybe even stealing the ball to then regain possession from the opposing team. Now this works brilliantly against England, as there isn't much speed in the forward pack, and the centres and backs are not really big enough to clear out the rucks effectively when the Welsh jackling attempts come in. I'm a bit annoyed that Eddie hasn't actually noticed this when playing Wales, because I mean this happened last year as well. And when you've got people like Squidge on YouTube pointing this out, I mean it's not a secret anymore. We can analyse Wales and their defence and actually come up against this. What made England better in the World Cup was their ability to counter defences like Wales, in the when these teams are trying to jackal the ball or poach it and get you away from supporting runners. England had a player that had just massive thighs that once he's made that line break, it is impossible to bring him down to then jackal, and it doesn't matter that he hasn't got support because he's just going for the try line and scoring anyway. And I am of course talking about Manu Tuilagi. When you have such a speedy, strong ball carrier like this in your team, the net defense doesn't really work, because you have to be able to bring him down to then compete for the ball. And it doesn't matter that he's away from the support, because he's also away from the Welsh defence. There's nobody there to even poach the ball from him, because he's got a Welsh defender on him, maybe, yeah, who's tried to tackle him, but he's managed to get through that defender and too speedy to be caught by any of the other Welsh defence. He's just a scoring machine. He's incredible. And if you give Manu this ability to move forward, he's just going to walk over you and keep going with you hanging on to him. I mean, this then meant opposing sides had to adopt the wall defence, so that then you can have two players hitting Manu rather than one, and then he might come down, and slow him down. I mean, Billy V, he is that threat as well. I mean, if you look at the weekend, Billy was able to make these line breaks, and then, I mean, he'd eventually come down because he doesn't have that same speed as Manu. Manu can get away from the people who are coming in to support the first person he's broken the tackle of, whereas Billy, other players are able to get there and bring him down. Manu's got that speed to get away. Now, England only really have Billy V at the moment who can do this. They don't have Manu anymore. There is a Manu-shaped void in England that they need to bring someone in who is both strong, ball carrier, and speedy. Now, Anthony Watson has impressed me by bulking up and just generally being a better, stronger ball carrier who's still got that speed, much like Manu Tuilagi. I mean, but the problem is he's on the wing. And the problem with being on the wing is you're not getting the ball most of the time, because you're just sat there waiting for them to go through all the phases and to get it to you. And that's a real shame. I mean, England no longer have that carrying threat option that comes alongside Billy if he's all the way on the wing, because he's just not going to get the ball. And so most teams now know that when you're playing England, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a kick rather than a crash ball or an attempted line break or just anything else. I mean, there's no variation in it. I mean, I've also looked at Ireland, and they tend to 9 times out of 10 go for crash ball when they just try to drive with the front pack, and that makes them predictable as well, and they've not been looking like they used to. They're not winning as much matches as they used to, and I think England are the same thing. They've just become too predictable. What made England dangerous in the World Cup was that they had this guy, Manu Tuilagi, who was different from the rest of the way the England team actually played, because England do like to kick, and we all know this, but Manu was there who could then mix it up. You pass it to him and he'll just make a line break and he'll go crazy. He's that X factor in the team, and they don't have that anymore. I mean, they try to use Billy to do these line breaks, but like I said, you need another one. You need someone else who can be there, either as a support guy for Billy or just someone who's just got a little bit more speed than Billy. Billy makes that first line break, you then pass it to the other strong guy, but who's also got the speed to get away from the supporting defenders. that was Manu, and we don't have that anymore. This is why so many people have been screaming at Eddie to give Sam Simmons or Alex Donbrand a go, because they've recognised that England need another Tuilagi who can carry, but also with speed. But the problem is they're calling for a change in number 8 when that's wrong. I mean, Billy V is good at that. He can make these line breaks. The problem is he just doesn't have the speed. What you need is another player. I mean, I'm talking a lot about selection, and Eddie doesn't seem to be caring about different selections at all. But I mean, where it shows you that it really does matter is Wales. I mean, their bench was incredible. Bigger hasn't really done anything exciting in the tournament, other than obviously the controversial crossfield kick, which was excellently weighted and done brilliantly. I mean, it was just sublime. But Pivac has been taking him off early and bringing on Sheedy, who is genuinely incredible and brings flair and something different to the side. Um, and that's perfectly fine to do. I think Eddie should be doing the same sort of thing, giving these other guys a go. I mean, and another thing in number 9 for Wales, Hardy, he was incredible. He's like their third pick. I mean, incredible. And Louis Rees-Zammit, he's just come into the team and exploded. Everyone's fallen in love with him. He is incredible. Whereas in contrast, I mean, England's bench came on and were making even more mistakes than the guys on the field. I mean, Robson always looks frightened like a little terrier. I mean, he's just always making mistakes out of just fear. And Genge just lazy penalties. He was giving away lazy penalties. Whereas, I mean, back in the old days, the finishers, as Eddie used to call them, used to come on and they would, they would annihilate. They would bring something else to the game that the guys on the field hadn't already been doing. And I feel like this is a part of selection. I mean, your bench is also part of your selection. You need to bring in these good people who are on form in the Premiership and in other areas as well. I mean, Eddie needs to look at his selection, I think, and maybe do a rebuild. World Cup's coming up. You need to have the best people possible to be in that team to then compete to win the World Cup. I don't think we're going to win the World Cup with the same team that we took to the final, because, I mean, age, and now everyone knows how to beat them because they've been analysing their games. You gotta do something different. You gotta mix it up a bit. But anyway, I mean, it's all very well and good me complaining and saying what's wrong and all of this, but I'm not a coach. Eddie has many years experience, and he's molded teams into well-oiled machines before, and he's taken 2 teams to the World Cup final. I mean, he did wonders with Japan. I mean, Japan, jeez Louise, they were incredible. They're amazing now. They are a great team, and Eddie created that. I mean, the guy's a genius, really. But yeah, I mean, he just needs to look at his team and work some more Eddie magic, I think. Thanks for everyone for watching. I mean, it's always good to have people enjoying watching what I'm saying. I mean, I've rambled so much in this video. I didn't really want to do it because I am an England fan and I was upset to see them lose. But Wales were great, and I'm actually falling in love with Louis Rees-Zammit a bit. I mean, England were made to look silly from the Welsh, and I just wish England could play like them. But anyway, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, please.